The eclipses are here. The eclipses are here. A lunar eclipse in Pisces, Tuesday, September 17th at 7:34 p.m. Pacific time. Adjust for your time zone accordingly. This eclipse will be the beginning of an eclipse portal that we will be in all the way through the solar eclipse in Libra, October 2nd. And this lunar eclipse in Pisces is deeply emotional, deeply intuitive, very poetic and artistic, in some cases very psychic, in other cases even very sleepy, and it might be all of the above. Hello, my name is Eliane Nicole. I'm your astrologer and tarot reader, and in this video I'm going to talk about the lunar eclipse in Pisces on Tuesday, September 17th, and how this eclipse is foreshadowing a direction and focal point that our life will be pulled in beginning in spring of 2025, taking us all the way into 2027. But first, I want to say, if you're watching this on Instagram, I'm only going to post the first 5 minutes of the video here. The entire video will be posted on my YouTube channel, Eliane Nicole. My YouTube channel is my name, Eliane Nicole. So I encourage you to please follow me there. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe. Please hit the notification button so you're notified every time I post a new video. Please comment, please share. It all really helps me in the algorithm so that I can continue to grow my channel and be in a position to deliver these free astrological offerings. If you're watching this on Instagram, please make sure that you're following astrology.tarot.Eliane Nicole. Please like, please comment. It all helps me out in the algorithm. But if you're watching on Instagram, remember, only the first 5 minutes of the video will be posted on Instagram. The entire video will be available on my YouTube channel, Eliane Nicole. And now, without further ado, I am going to talk about this deeply mystical, watery lunar eclipse in Pisces and what it means in the present day, you know, for the day it's happening, as well as what it's foreshadowing for the future beginning in spring of 2025. And lunar eclipses happen at full moons, and full moons happen every month, so they aren't necessarily watershed astrological events. This is a partial lunar eclipse, so this makes this full moon more significant and impactful than your everyday garden variety full moon, but it's not quite as intense as a complete lunar eclipse. However, like all full moons, this one will be a culminating point in the Pisces area of our chart, because this one is happening in Pisces. So if you don't know what house Pisces rules in your chart, contact me for a reading. I can talk to you about where this lunar eclipse is taking place in your chart. Yeah, so full moons, they bring culmination and or illumination to the section in our chart where they emerge. And for the collective, a lot of times eclipses have to do with significant things going on between the leadership and the populace. And again, because this is a lunar eclipse in Pisces, it's going to bring up very Piscean themes for the collective. And, you know, Pisces has to do with so many things. Pisces rules the ocean. It's the watery, yin, mutable temple of Jupiter. Jupiter is right now in Gemini. And so a lot of this will have to do with information and conversations. In some cases in our personal lives, it can have to do with siblings, friends, neighbors, teachers, students. But for the collective, it's going to have a lot to do with, you know, information that we're getting from the leadership and information that we're getting from the media and the press, and that coming to a very culminating and illuminating point on the Pisces-Virgo axis, because full moons are full because they're opposing the sun. The sun is in Virgo and the full moon is in Pisces, and this lunar eclipse is taking place at 25 degrees Pisces, and the sun will be at 25 degrees Virgo. So this will be particularly personal to you if you have any planets anywhere from 22 to 28, 29 degrees of Pisces or Virgo or Gemini or Sagittarius. This has to do with the mutable axis, and the mutable signs are going to be the most impacted. If you have any planets in Cancer or Scorpio, or you're rising in the 22 to 29 degrees of Cancer or Scorpio, it's going to be very emotional, but it's going to be, I think, overwhelmed with emotions in a very good way. And I don't want to get too much into interpreting how the different signs are going to handle it. But for Cancer and Scorpio late degree people, it will be impacting you with a trine, which is a very harmonious flow, but it's still very, very emotional because the water signs hold so much emotion. It's also very creative, and it's also very psychic. And so there's many different ways the energy can play out depending on your own personal astrology, which is why I always encourage people to get a reading, work one-on-one with an astrologer to understand. But in these videos, I like to give the broad strokes of what's going on. In general, because this is such an emotional lunar eclipse, and it's conjoining Neptune, and Neptune is one of the outer planets. The outer planets have to do with things that are going on for a generation. They move so slow that whole signs, that whole generations are born with them in the same sign. But right now, Neptune and Pluto and Uranus are all making, harmonious aspects to each other. And so the moon and the sun are getting involved in this kite formation geometrically that is making this really this is a very mystical, very karmic turning point for the collective. And again, it's foreshadowing themes that are going to be a focal point and direction that we are really being pulled in beginning in spring of 2025, taking us all the way to 2027. But for the day that it's happening, it's also going to have a present day impact that feels like we are out at sea, out at emotional sea, or maybe out at sea in our creative practice, or in what our vision is. Pisces is the vision, Pisces is the dream, Pisces is music and painting and dancing and writing poetry, and so and Pisces is also healing and health, and it's faith and spirituality. So again, depending on your own astrology, you can feel lost at sea, lost in the Piscean sea with any of these topics, whether it's your vision, your artistic practice, your faith, your dream. On the more shadowy side, Pisces rules, addiction, and it can be, some of the, just like feeling lost, fantasy, hallucination. And it is a sensitive lunar eclipse in terms of addictions, overdoses, suicidal ideation, or even the full execution. So this is a time to check on your people who are in a sensitive zone with any of those topics, for sure. This is such a terrible lighting situation. I'm just going to have a Sun in Virgo vanity moment here. I'm recording this video at night. I usually like to do them with the natural light so I don't have a big old shiny forehead. There's probably things that I could do to have better lighting if I'm shooting at night, but I haven't done those things yet. And so I have a shiny forehead as I do this video. But I want to keep going with the interpretation. So yes, what makes a full moon is that it's opposing the sun. The sun is in Virgo, so we're dealing with opposing forces on the Pisces-Virgo axis. So this is reality versus the dream. This is the details versus the big picture. This is the data and the facts versus faith and what God has in mind. This is, you know, the forest and trees. This is the axis of physical health versus our mental health and our spiritual health. You know, this is the axis of, yes, like the material realm versus the spiritual realm. These are all of, you know, it's earth and it's water. So it's very creative at best. You know, these oppositions are great to work with for creatives. They're the best. I'm actually working on a book about astrology and the creative process. And I'm going to talk about oppositions and squares and all of these aspects that, you know, astrologers always tell us to be more concerned about because they're the harder, you know, lessons and tests and challenges in life. But if you're a creative, this is the best to work with to produce the greatest art. And, you know, and for the art of living, these are great to work with. They're not always easy to experience, but it's the successful, you know, interaction with these types of transits that build character and build self-esteem and build our life within the 3D reality and connect our spirit to the earthly realm. But I'm going away on a tangent here, so this is going to end up being a long video. But what I want to talk about some of the transits. So as the, you know, so this moon it's conjunct Saturn as it's coming into its perfection. It's conjoining Saturn, who is in Pisces, the great mystic, the great contemplative, the great, you know, older, wiser professor, sage, the shaman, the priest, you know, and the, you know, the religious or spiritual leader. It's also, you know, that's in people, but then in a sense it's also bringing up themes internally about emotional maturity, emotional IQ, you know, emotional boundaries. There's a lot of internal work that we may be doing. It could be a crisis of faith. It could be having to deal with deep emotions, melancholy, a lot of self-reflection, you know, again, you know, the dream versus the reality, the fantasy versus the reality, the big picture versus the details that it takes to execute it, to reach the vision. And then we also have the moon square Jupiter. So, you know, this is, you know, very, again, big emotions. This could be relationships with siblings, friends, neighbors that are being highlighted here. This can have to do with education, higher learning. This can have to do with, again, the data and the information coming into a conflict with the faith, with the spirituality. Did I mention that the Pisces-Virgo axis also is health? This can be health related. And And the moon is forming a sextile with Uranus, which is nice because there's very deeply fertile, creative energy. There are pleasant surprises that come out of this period, this lunar eclipse. It's going to illuminate pleasant surprises. And then, the conjunction to Neptune is really the closest aspect of this full moon. And that conjunction to Neptune can go either way. Again, it can be very transcendental and very spiritual, very like metaphysical and psychic. It can be deeply religious and spiritual. But it can also be, have to do with escapism, illusion, delusion, fantasy, confusion, overdoses, suicides, some of these tougher topics to deal with. That's also Pisces. Pisces runs the gamut from philanthropy to homelessness. Pisces rules all of that stuff. And the Neptunian energy, I've heard some people call Neptune a malefic and some people call it a benefic. And it really depends on how your own Neptune is placed in your own natal chart, the likely way that you will experience it in transits. I find Neptune personally, for me, to be very romantic, to be very creative and mystical. Neptune rules film and filmmakers and, music and composers and spiritual leaders and psychic ability and the oneness that connects us all and tuning into that oneness. But on the other side, Neptune dissolves things. It can make things disappear. It can, it can wash away the castles in the sand that we've built. And particularly opposing the sun, it can be situations where we have to take off our rose-colored shades that we've had around a certain situation and face what the reality is, which isn't always a pleasant experience. So Neptune runs the gamut. And again, that's why this lunar eclipse it's so Piscean in that way that it's like, there's so many different forms that it can take. Pisces is the shapeshifter, the mutable signs shapeshift, and that brings me to the point that they call for, flexibility and adaptability. And there's so much that I could say about this lunar eclipse. The most important points I think that I've made, it's going to come up for different people in different ways, and then it's going to come up for the collective in yet another way. But again, for the collective, the moon is the collective, the sun is the leadership. So there are oppositional forces that are coming up having to do with, what the vision is versus the reality is, what the data and facts are that are being delivered to us versus what, the bigger picture is. This is faith versus the facts. This is the axis of health, and information coming out about health and religion and different topics that hold a high emotional voltage. And so these are going to be conversations that are swirling around, and where, new information will be coming to light, as well as there being some culminating events coming to the fore. And great time to get a reading, to look at where this eclipse is happening in your chart, because again, even though it's happening Tuesday on the West Coast, Wednesday in a lot of places in the world, and the energy will be reverberating throughout the week, it's also foreshadowing something in our lives. It's going to be a direction that we are being pulled, a new focal point beginning in the spring of 2025, taking us all the way into 2027. So great time to get a reading. I would love to read for you. I read on Zoom, and so I can read for people anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world. One-on-one working with astrologer is the best way to get the most out of astrology. I would love to read for you. My information can be found on my socials. My email is on YouTube. If you're watching on Instagram, you can hit the, go to my profile bio, hit the contact button, and it'll take you to an email to get in touch with me directly. And gosh, I wish I wasn't saying so much. I need to get better about that. Thank you for joining me and my shiny forehead on this on this lunar eclipse reading, and have a beautiful lunar eclipse in Pisces. Thank you.